It was odd, to say the least. He had not seen something like this in a while. Out across the waves, a massive shape was crossing. White-capped waves that sloshed back and forth. Coils breached the surface upon coils and coils. A long sail tail sweeping outward and pushing it along. A large serpentine head breaking through the water. A monster coming to the shores of the island. He raised his right and left hands and placed them before himself in prayer. The large necklace blowing in the wind, 10 jade beads swirling, the folds of his white robe flapped while his trousers remained close from the force of the breeze. Sister, 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 what beast comes to take the shores of your land? As the creature reached the shoreline, he reached to his head and removed the comb there, from which a wild mess of black hair went streaming into the blowing winds. From the waves below, the massive creature arched, like a snake sizing up its prey. Its mouth was cavernous, its teeth splitting open like great doors. The breath it exhaled upon rising was hot, like the steam from a boiling kettle, wilting the grass around the man as he stared at it, unimpressed. Its deep blue scales stretched into the sea, while several coils found their way about the rocks on the coast. Its rough underbelly entrenching the beach and the side of the cliff, as its firelit eyes looked down at him with cold indifference. "Kneel, weakling of earth!" The creature bellowed in a hiss, its mouth curling into a cruel grin. The heat of its breath continued over the figure before it. "Of earth? I would not make such bold assumptions, creature, bearing witness to the wrong god. I kneel before no one." Then the cliffside was gone. A strike so sudden it shook the island to its foundation. Clumps of stone falling to the beach and into the sea, splashing around as the beast reared its head back from its attack. Debris dropped from its massive frame as it looked skyward, where the man was spinning downward like a gentle breeze. In that downward spiral came the shining glint of a longsword, traditional in make, and 10 spans long. It flashed down along the creature's back, where scales sat, overlaid more like shields, so tight that not even air could pass between them. Sparks flew as the sword ground against the monstrous back, the wielder sliding down the scales with the blade as if he was on ice. Then he was flung from its back by his own movement, the 10-span blade in his hands leading him away, yet failing to do much of anything against this great ancient beast.
"That blade is like straw to me. Frail. Useless."
As he soared, a massive fan came and filled his periphery, a tail that was the size of a boat's sail, blasting across him with vicious force. He was hurled with it, vanishing from the sheer strength of the strike. Then the shoreline bore marks of a stone skipping, his sandals striking the beach with vicious force. When he did stop, his sandals crashed into the cliffside, a cave rapidly expanding from the point of impact before blasting out several yards away as a tunnel. Standing there, he tightened his grasp on the sword and readied himself. Nothing but stone, head tearing along the cliff and breaking it away. The water below filled with splashing debris and whitecaps as its massive form pushed onward. Pulling from the rubble, it retreated back amid its countless coils. A moment later, its massive head was slammed back into the cliffside, a sandal poised in the point of impact. The deity hovered there, looking at him, before seemingly blinking away. Again, debris fell from its frame, striking the water, yet it reared back to reach full height. Looming over the cliffside, the island, titanic against the skyline, it let loose with a breath that scorched the air, turning grass to dust and blowing any debris into ash. "It appears you are the one who is to be made a mockery of. You've swung at me 3 times and missed."
"Your words have no value. Those who perceive themselves as mighty all bow before me."
A gout of flame washed across the landscape, trees and grass alike being melted and slurry, stone being reddened in an inferno, and rivers turning to pillars of steam. A rumble followed alongside the tongues of fire, breaking the ground in several places, only to spill more heat from this. Amid those flames, a circular wind blew, reducing the heat to that of a mere summer breeze. The grass within that wind was lush, and the trees too bore fresh leaves. Wreathed in smoke stood the cause of this gale, blade in hand. Thunder rumbled, and the god took off, blade sitting in sheath. Instantly it was drawn. A glint flashed along the face of the Titan, and the clouds above it, a parting of them allowing beams of sunlight to dance downward. The monster reeled back by the force, while the being who swung adjusted his hands and seemed to continue with the motion. Despite that parting shot of the clouds, the beast merely turned, the numerous interlocking scales of its back taking the brunt of the impact. Sparks flew again as the blade raced along the edge, the robed warrior sliding down with the momentum of the attack yet again. This creature, Leviathan, teetered from the strike, once more bringing its tail around. It was not to be trifled with, and it would show this ingrate that much. Fanning its tail, the beast struck the deity as he trailed away, a colossal smash that echoed out across the island. Nowhere to go, the god was hurled back into the island's coast with greater force than before. Dust, rock, sand, grass, trees, all destroyed in an instant as he crashed backwards upwards, his black hair waving chaotically, a bleary haze filling his eyes, a haze that quickly tinged orange and red, the beast of the sea lighting the sky itself aflame. The fabric of white he bore was swallowed first, and his body, an instant later, fire like a torrent ripped high beyond the point of collision. Heat shimmers crossed the entire island from the intensity of the blast, and dry winds swept along the entire land of rice and reeds. Leviathan allowed the breath to fade a moment later, a joyous bellow following. A victorious monster that had not been cowed, a creature that could not be leashed, unequaled by any man on the planet. Yet, descending through the air, falling in a column of smoke, was the figure he had struck. Heat poured along in strands as ash rose from tattered robes. Then Leviathan's maw opened and struck outward, ready for the finishing blow that was sure to come. However, the doors of its mouth closed, and while there was a sickening crunching sound as if two blades and hammers crushed together simultaneously, there was no prey. Instead, the prey stood gripping Leviathan firmly by the nose, clutching scale and nostril with determination. A fighting spirit that refused to go down after such a violent outburst of heat and flame. Susanoo. I am Susanoo no Mikoto. You come to the shores of this island to hunt, to desire prey, to claim superiority. Do not think this is over. I will slay you as swiftly as the land dries on my whim. With these words, and with his left hand bearing the blade, a swing was cast. It struck firmly into the chin of the oceanic Goliath, a whirling blast of wind that threw its body back in another recoil. Susanoo stumbled backward, dropping down to the sea below, where his feet found purchase on the wind, and his body balanced on the waves. His exposed chest was scarred with embers, and his eyes were reddened by the smoke. His reddened eyes were soon blotted out for a moment, Leviathan bearing down with monstrous ferocity. White water exploded upward. The seafloor a moment later was parted, cascading bubbles being flung to the surface. Leviathan pushed with its weight and strength, burying the god into the bedrock of the island with its rage. Ground down dozens of meters, the god laid there beneath the sea as the titanic creature pulled its head back. As he looked, the reds of its eyes were distant like the sun, yet still illuminating the darkness. Stunned, tired, and hand-clutching his blade, the warrior god pushed from the seafloor. Wet sand crumbled in his grasp as he picked himself up. Stone and coral rolled from him as he reached a vertical base there in the depths. Eyes looking upward, he saw the massive snaking shadow that sat above him. The shadow soon became heavily obscured as the sea boiled and bubbled, heat racing down through it as the monster let loose with another fiery blast of breath. Scalding water pushed down around him into the crevice from which he arose. His knees buckled amid the heat, and his head lowered from the intensity. Despite it, he refused to let either knee hit the seafloor, refusing to kneel beneath the might of such a monstrous creature. Leviathan's looming head drew nearer and nearer, intensifying the heat, boiling water, and vicious breath. Susanoo found himself wavering, his charred body feeling heavier and heavier as the seconds ticked by. Here in the boiling ocean, he had to make a move, the bubbling water scorching down upon him, and the monster looming. an attempt to make him submit, to kneel, to bow to an authority above him. He, who had no fear of Yomi, no fear of death, was now put against one who wished to test the limits of such statements. In the torrent of boiling water, and nearly driven to his knees, the god grabbed the handle of this 10-span sword and sternly looked upward. He had never felt anything akin to this. The great Leviathan was so mighty that while as large as the Yamata no Orochi, it bore fire in its breath and impossible armor on its body, a true titan. The boiling water parted as he took forward, headlong towards this monster, his tightening grip on his sword growing his knuckles white. This strike was going to be all that he could muster against it, and it would have to be it. Waves broke, and the swinging of his blade was let loose as it struck the chest of the monster, torrents of water roostering off into the distance, as if strewn there by the throwing of a great stone. Its chest, a great millstone that stood against the grinding of time and wave, and now bore the edge of this 10-spanned sword. Susanoo pushed, ignoring the scorching heat that rendered over his body, his frame raging against this creature. As it found itself picked up by that might, red eyes glaring, it looked down at the figure, testing the metal of its underbelly, having failed to dent its back. Its lower half coiled and whipped, preparing to swat the fly away, yet strength of that lower half began to fade, Susanoo ripping against its chest and pressing against its scales, until something gave way. The sword, as it pressed inward, snapped at the hilt, Susanoo being carried away beyond the meeting point, his frame buoying past Leviathan to the surface, breaking through in a jet of speed brought by his offense. He looked back. From the point where his blade met the creature's chest, a geyser of crimson was bubbling to the surface of the sea.
Is this pain? Injury? Me? Injured? I cannot be injured by one under heaven. That's impossible.
Crimson rolled around it as it thrashed, awestruck, at the damage it had accrued. The chest, hard as a millstone, and cutting like a sledge, was cut. Yes, you, foolhardy men, may bow before you, but I rush headlong into the fray, unwilling to kneel. Beneath heaven, you may have no equal, but I am equal to heaven shining herself! Leviathan pulled back from the airborne deity, pain filling its essence, blood running from the wound and continuing to stain the sea a deep crimson. The doors of its mouth locked together as its teeth gnashed before vanishing beneath the waves. Strands of white water akin to hair tore across the sea as it darted away. When it vanished beyond the horizon, Susanoo fell to the surface of the sea. Smoke and steam rose from his body. I emerged victorious this time, but I doubt I will ever forget our hands being raised against one another. Amaterasu, sister, the next one is yours. As he said those words, the clouds above parted, and the sun reached its light down upon the island and the defender. Amid the sunbeams, he heard her giggle, a sister humoring her brother's request.